It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
Folks, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here in AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and over the next hour, you can join the conversation at 508-871. I don't know where the 9 came from. 871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. And of course, the station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app. So that means you can take us anywhere, as well as tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she'll do that, no questions asked. And of course, I do turn the show into a podcast. So you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, etc., etc. 508-871-7000. Today, Behind the Glass, flying aboard today. He'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. So obviously we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to go and walk through a lot of stories, several stories. And when we put them together, it's going to paint a pretty damning picture of how power operates in the country. Who gets protected, who gets exposed, who gets ignored, who gets targeted for political convenience. Let's start with the latest development with the Epstein scandal, because yes, it is a scandal, and it's becoming increasingly clear that Washington doesn't want the public to know the full truth. And we see the sides, both sides of the aisle, volleying this back and forth. But if you go to the show's Facebook page in my X, I played a clip from MSNBC in the morning, and it was 2015. So it was at the very beginning. Hillary was getting prepped to run to replace Obama, and they were talking about Trump emerging as a candidate. And the Epstein background of Epstein came up as a topic, and they were discussing how Trump was going to use that, and the Clintons were going to be facing the type of candidate that they've never faced before, talking about Trump. It's worth going to take a look at. And yesterday during the House debate on new Epstein legislation, House Oversight Chair James Comey absolutely blindsided Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Comer reminded Congress on the record that Democrats sat on Epstein documents for years, and they fought transparency. They stalled witnesses and blocked subpoenas. They blocked requests for the flight logs. And that wouldn't have exposed any of the personal facts of the victims. And there are flaws in this bill that don't fully protect and redact the identifying marks of the victims. And it's not our habit in this country to let out the identifiers of victims. We just don't do that. But anyway, now suddenly they're champions of disclosure. And Comer's central message was simple. Your party protected Jeffrey Epstein, protected everyone around him, fought every attempt to bring his network to light. That's a stunning statement coming from the House floor. And you know what? The facts support it, because the same time Jeffrey feigns his outrage, there's another story breaking. Right, you got the Reid Hoffman and Epstein connection. ABC News confirmed something really big. LinkedIn co-founder and mega Democratic donor Reid Hoffman maintained contact with Epstein well after Epstein was a convicted sex offender, not before, after, as did many, many Democrats. And I think it was 2004, 21 years ago, long before Donald Trump's political aspirations were coming to light, when he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago for being, in his words, a sick perv. Donald Trump's words, 24 years ago. So photings, meetings, dinners, and trips, even after 2008 when Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting a minor. And a lot of this animosity between Trump and Epstein comes from Epstein trying to do his thing at Mar-a-Lago or recruit talent that was working at Mar-a-Lago. And Trump got wind of it. He also got wind of what else was going on. But nobody seemed to speak up about it or talk about it. Then he was actually convicted in 2008. And yeah, I think it was a member's daughter that he tried to, my producer's saying, I believe it was. And Trump just kicked him out of the club. Now, Hoffman is one of the biggest Democratic fundraisers in the country. Millions upon millions poured into campaigns, PACs, political influence structures, and the political class knew about these ties for years, and they said nothing because they were getting a paycheck or they were getting donations. So the pattern, they knew he was trafficking minors. They knew the sweetheart deal. They knew the scope, and they stayed closed-mouthed about it anyway. Why? Power, access, connections, influence. Kind of simple. They all knew except Trump. That is what the article or essay that Wolf wrote. Then we get this extraordinary piece from the newly released 20,000 plus house documents. And Michael Wolf, a journalist, certainly not known for being pro-Trump, wrote an unpublished 2014 profile of Epstein, years after Epstein's conviction. And in that profile, and I'm remembering now also, and Ted, who was the anchor caught on a hot mic and camera talking about how she had all of this? And I think she's out of the network now and on her own. And I'm sorry, her name will come to me. It just popped in my head. But anyway, this Michael Wolff 2014 profile on Epstein, it mentions Bill Gates and Larry Summers, Ed Brock, billionaires, a Nobel Prize winner, a prime minister, a high-ranking Obama White House official, and a long list of powerful elites who kept visiting Epstein's New York mansion even after he was a registered sex offender. Where's the filter? But one name was not there, and that was Donald J. Trump. Wolf says the Clintons dropped Epstein. Business elites stayed, but Trump wasn't even relevant in that world anymore. He had cut ties way before 2014. Yet today, Democratic lawmakers like Chris Murphy stand on camera and say Trump was at the center of a child sex ring. Shame on him. No evidence, nothing in the documents, nothing in Wolf's reporting, nothing in the visitor logs. This is what we see again and again. Facts don't matter when political narrative is more valuable than the truth. We'll also move into this rash or I shouldn't say rash, just the realization that we have all of these CDLs, commercial driver's licenses, that have been issued in Kansas, right? A terrorist fugitive with a CDL and a Biden work permit. While Democrats are shouting conspiracy theories, real threats are driving semi-trucks on our U.S. highways. So in Kansas, police stopped a big rig and discovered the driver was A, an illegal alien, B, a terrorism-linked fugitive from Brazil, and he had been given a work permit by the Biden administration. And we were told for 4 years that the border was secure and that people coming in were vetted. So let me repeat that. A wanted terrorist suspect was authorized to work in the United States, and he was driving a big rig on American highways, a 40-ton missile going down our highways. This isn't a one-off. This is a direct result of immigration policy that allowed this to happen. People ask, how does a terrorist get a CDL? Who approved this? What oversight does exist? Here's the truth. The Biden administration issued millions of work permits under parole, asylum claims, and temporary programs. DHS data shows nearly 1 million new work authorizations per year under expanded parole programs alone. And many states have issued these commercial driver's licenses to non-citizens, including individuals with only temporary status. Oversight is fragmented. DHS gives work permits, state-issued CDLs, FBI terrorist screening is overwhelmed. The system is so loose that criminals, and in the case of a terror fugitive, can slip right through. This is the opposite of sovereignty. This is the opposite of the rule of law. And this is what the founders warned us about when they spoke of government that refuses to perform its most basic duty, protecting the people. And we certainly will get into a little bit about the $1 trillion the Saudi investment is about to happen here in the United States, because that is incredible. And we're going to zoom in on that and look at the biggest global financial story of the year: Saudi Arabia pledging $1 trillion of investment inside the United States. And that includes the $142 billion in arms deal, AI and computing partnerships, critical minerals, infrastructure, tech, robotics, and defense manufacturing. And what does it mean? It means that the Saudis are anchoring themselves inside the American economy the same way they anchored themselves to the US dollar in the 1970s, the Nixon era. We created what became known as the petrol dollar, the petroleum system, the petro system. The United States guaranteed the security of the Saudi kingdom. In return, the Saudis priced all global oil sales in the US dollar. That created 50 years of American financial dominance, but the rule was the golden rule. But folks, we have to take our first break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10. All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. And you could join the conversation for the remainder of the hour, the time we have together, at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And, of course, you can text us on the text line, 617-297-8388. Let me go to the phones. Mark's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Never a dull moment, is there?
Never.
Especially now, when the chickens are coming home to roost. You know, Larry Summers, I didn't know much about him. I'm learning more about him now every day. He was a former U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. He was also the president of Harvard University. What I hear this morning, I don't know nothing about high tech. Maybe you can help me out with this. OpenAI, is that a big company?
Yes.
The tech field?
It's one of the big ones, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Google. It's up in that league, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or close to it?
Yeah, it's part of the chat. I think it's the Chat GPT. That's OpenAI.
It's a big company. It's a big deal. Yeah. Okay. Well, Larry Summers was on the board. He ain't on the board no more. OpenAI. They just announced that this morning, and I think it's going to be a domino effect. And I don't think he's the only one.
Well, I think the dominoes started with Prince Andrew, right? The Queen moved him out of things, and now the King just recently.
Yeah, I'm
stripped him
talking
of his
about
titles.
American citizens. You know
Well,
what I mean?
yeah, but it's a
American
global problem, Mark. The first domino, right?
Yeah.
We can look
well,
and we can see
you gotta
transcend.
clean. You gotta clean your own house first. Okay.
Yeah,
You gotta
well-
get your own house straightened out. Then you're worried about that numbskull.
But shouldn't Prince
England.
Andrew have been the the foreshadowing? Shouldn't he been the canary in the coal mine? Shouldn't the fact that when the Queen removed Prince Randy Andy as they used to call him, shouldn't that have said, well, look, he was just one person we knew hanging around. This has been the thing. They have been stopping the release of the sickos and they're doing it under the guise of the victims. Why would you stop the flight log? Why would you stop the flight log?
What, the FAA flight log for the
FAA flight log, right? It was Democrats
for the
who
end
stopped
numbers on the Lolita Express. I talked about that 6 months ago. Where is it?
Well, it's all coming now.
Yeah, it's all coming now. Now that it's hit the fan. So, yeah, he's just one of them, high profile gatekeeper who's going to go down. And there's others beside him. I mean, you can name them off alphabetically and numerically. When you get right down to it, there's going to be at least one fall guy or fall girl that's going to go to jail on this. They have to put at least one of them in jail, and I'm predicting at least one of them will go to prison, and they will be the fall guy who will take it on the chin for the rest of them.
Yeah. How do you think they choose who the fall guy is going to be?
I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe
I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
Maybe they draw straws. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to be the
Do you
fly.
agree with my assessment, though?
Yeah, I do. 100%. 100%, Mark. That it? Final word? All right. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it, Mark. Always brings a good point. Yeah. So, look, it is time to clean house. It is time to figure this out. It is time to I don't know why this has been so, well, no, you know why. That's rhetorical, right? It's because it would indict so many people that are powerful and well-known and connected that they have stopped it at every turn. Now, I think, only because I've been watching how Trump operates, and it's almost as if he got the Democrats riled up to release this thing. And no, this is a hoax. Why are we bothering with this anymore? Which made them drive more. And here's the bottom line on this. And Mark, I would assume you're going to concur with this. Because if we go back to 2015, when that MSNBC interview, and like I say, go to my X account or my Facebook page. It's kind of long, but it's very interesting because this is a year before the really campaign got heated up. And there are those that are supposed to be in the know talking about Epstein being a real detriment to the Clintons, Hillary specifically, because of Bill's behavior with Epstein. This was in 2015, and how Trump was going to leverage it. So they knew damn well in 2015 that Trump, if anything, was partly responsible for bringing Epstein to justice, because there's a lot of credible leakage that Trump may have been the FBI informant that led to the 2008 conviction. So if they had anything that incriminated Donald Trump, that put him anywhere at one of these things. Now, yeah, there are pictures of Trump and Epstein. But you got to remember, from the 80s when Trump came on, it really made a splash. And he made about 27 years old when he had the issue with his father's buildings. And he fought that and settled out. never admitted any wrongdoing, and he made the leap from Queens and Brooklyn to Manhattan, and he kind of broke out. And I think that in the 80s and 90s, he was on, I believe it's still the record number of tabloid covers in a year, right? So like 57 or some ridiculous thing. But that's when he really learned to use the media, stay in, and learn that any press is good press. And Forbes put him on, the top 100 millionaires or something list. So this was a time where he was referenced in movies and TV shows and cameos. He was this billionaire playboy, and he cultivated that image. So everybody wanted a picture with Donald Trump. So there's pictures with dozens, if not hundreds, of other people in or out or just outside that shot with Epstein. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. But the fact that nobody puts him on the plane, nobody puts him on the island, no one puts him in the mansion, and even the victims have said anytime they were in a room with Donald Trump, he was a perfect gentleman, etc. And the fact that in 2015 they were talking about this and how damaging the Epstein connection to the Clintons would be in her campaign, because if Donald Trump decided to use it, it would be nuclear. So now we have, during this debate on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, chaired by James Comer, he's the guy from Kentucky, and he revealed a 2013 email from consulting firm Dynamic SRG to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, inviting him to fundraise or to a fundraising dinner linked with Hakeem Jeffries. He's the Democrat and leader in the House. And the email describes Jeffries as a rising star in Brooklyn's Barack, meaning Barack Hussein Obama, and extended the chance to get to know him and participate in a DSCC dinner. Though no public record shows Epstein donated to Jeffries' campaign or the committees in question, the disclosure has added scrutiny to Jeffries' past fundraising efforts and raises questions about the broader effort to release the Epstein-related files. Just does. Rule of law and equity under the law. If campaigns are reaching out to known offenders convicted 5 years earlier, the 2008 conviction for solicitation of a minor, to participate in fundraising, it undermines confidence in political accountability, does it not? The impetus behind the Epstein Files Act is to shine light on the network of influence and possible corruption. And this little episode illustrates why such transparency is necessary. And this stuff should have been released long ago. If we look at this from a libertarian constitutionalist standpoint, while we favor limited government, we must insist on robust mechanisms to uncover abuse of power and influence. The House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform under Comer is acting in that capacity. He's trying to achieve this. So that invitation suggests a blurred line between campaign fundraising and influence peddling, doesn't it? Free markets and free speech are vital, but they don't permit undisclosed or potentially compromised financial ties or solicitations. Just as we insist on safeguarding our national borders, we should insist on clear boundaries around political fundraising and avoid these open-door influence by illicit actors. The integrity of our system does rest on the trust of individual citizens. And when high-level politicians are linked, even indirectly, around the fringes like this, to criminal actors, the trust erodes and threatens individual liberty because power goes unchecked. And while the concerns one email and one campaign, the lack of immediate disclosure suggests the possibility of broader undisclosed links. Reform of campaign finance and donor transparency laws, I think they're necessary. The Act's goal is to secure justice for the victims of Epstein's crimes, right? That's the goal. It's also to expose the bad actors here, too. And if political actors were engaged with him, it raises moral questions about complicity or at least negligent association. With the act passed overwhelmingly in the House, 427-1, in the Senate by unanimous consent, this story timely underscores Congress acted well. All right, going to take the mid-show break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Stick with us, folks. 508-871-7000, back in 2 and 10. All right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. I am Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation for the time that we have left together here till 2 o'clock at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Let's go right to the phones. Tyler first. Hey, Tyler, what say you?
I say we have a two for Tuesday. The first one is in 1933, FDR, after the Depression, Executive Order 6012. Think, after the Depression, the banks, everyone ripped their gold out. Bring in your gold, get $20.67. That's when we had a government of, for, and by the people. Then in 71, as Joe said, a Nixon shock ended the Bretton Woods, which is just the Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, where they had agreed to keep gold. And now we're finding out it's like a can of worms. You can only imagine how bad the underlying layer stinks of how they switch it to petrol. And now you got the fancy maneuverings. Joe, I need you to help me with that one, but I need even bigger help on this one. This federal prosecutor goes to an indictment with the grand jury and doesn't present the complete indictment. She's never actually done this. She was a Smithsonian intern, wiggity, giggly, giggly, and now she's suddenly prosecuting 4 days before to get Comey. What the heck's going on there?
Yeah. Look, I think that what we were seeing with that is the judge setting this up to dismiss for Comey, basically.
Right.
And because he's going to do it on the prosecutor, and that they violated the procedures on that. So I think that's
right.
That's a big setup, right, to dismiss.
I know. How do you do something so inefficient? You would want to go forward with what you call the correct process. You can't get a motion to dismiss based upon an improper or incomplete filing to the grand jury. Talk about no experience. I mean, what's going on here? Where'd they get their law degree? Cracker Jacks? What's a Smithsonian intern?
I have no idea.
That was a connection to Trump. Years ago, that was a connection. And, Joe, what's going on with what we're talking about, the money transfer, the subverted shifting economic value base? Is Saudi, are they trying to line them up to own our economy? I mean, what's going on here?
Well, I actually have a lot of notes on that. I'm going to get into this and what it is. But remember, the history, we got over a 50-year history. We go to back to 73 when Nixon sent an emissary over there and said basically, look, we can do this one of two ways. We can come in, we'll convert, we'll do it clandestine, we'll overthrow, and we'll place a puppet in charge of Saudi Arabia, or we'll guarantee that the family will stay in control of Saudi Arabia, the current kingdom, and you will always sell oil in American dollars. That's the golden rule. You will invest back into this country, so you stay in power. We won't overthrow you, allow anyone else to do that. Nixon set that up in 1973. And every president understood this golden rule ever since. The only person who put that in jeopardy was Joe Biden. And Joe Biden did that when he started to seize these assets, right, when Russia invaded Ukraine. And that's when these countries started to say, wait a minute, what if they don't like what we say or do? will America do that to us? And that's when the BRICS nations started to get together, and some oil started to get traded in the yuan, right? The Chinese dollar. And they wanted to put this BRICS nation dollar together. And that is what Trump has reversed and is getting this back to the petroleum dollar. And the reason that we've been able to finance or basically have these wars for 20 years, you know, being Afghan or whatever, Tyler, for all these years and not go bankrupt is because the entire world economic system is based in American dollars because of the petrodollar.
Right. It makes sense, though, because remember when Gaddafi wanted to print the lira and Saddam wanted to print his
That's why Gaddafi
money,
got whacked.
Killed. Right. And Saddam
he got whacked
removed
because he wanted to create a lira, a South American currency, and use the South American minerals and oil to back it. And now that was unacceptable to us.
Okay, so this is a simple question. It's self-evident that if you're going to control financial value and movement, you have to control and be the base for the dollar. That makes sense. So the question is it being properly utilized for progressive and interactive economic growth as opposed to like Bitcoin with the shadow backing or Petro as a shadow backing with an underseen agenda? And I'll close the question with this thought. I remember hearing them say if you can stick it to Putin bad enough and hurt his propane economy, Germany relies on Russia's propane. And if Germany collapses on Russia's propane, the Euro alliance will collapse, which we don't want. You have to try to think of what's the worst possible outcome before you can get to the full analysis.
Yeah, and that's a very tricky. Tyler, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. That's a very tricky sleight of hand here because we do have to hurt the revenue coming into Russia for nothing other than to teach Putin a lesson and take the financing of his ability to keep a war going away, but not hurt Germany and other European nations. So we have to replace their energy supply while we make it impossible for them to get their energy from Russia. So this has got to be the kind of sleight of hand here that we hurt Russia while replacing the demand that is coming there. And by the way, Germany is doing some incredible leaps forward in zero-point energy and batteries, not lithium batteries, saltwater type batteries that hold charges for like 50 years. There's some incredible stuff actually coming out of Germany tech-wise on that we're going to take a look at. 508-871-7000. Ken is waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you? Been a little while.
Yes, Joe. And I'm on the lighter side today. I do this now once in a while. You know what I'm looking forward to? The hearing over this. And I'm thinking that the House Committee on Oversight...
The hearing over what now?
Well, what everybody's talking about, Epstein. Of course.
Oh, they had the hearing.
No, what I'm saying, there's going to be hearings over what...
Oh, you mean, okay, from the fallout, the hearings that are going to... Yeah. Well, now what's going to be interesting is look at, right, the people who are kind of stepping back from public life, trying to I mean, look, after this vote, even before this vote went through, I mean, you had the top defense attorneys in Washington and New York and stuff, phone ringing off the hook. And you had a lot of people starting to get their fixes in place, get their legal teams in place, because they know, look, if they're releasing this stuff, finally my name's coming out. Now, there are going to be people whose names are involved because they're in emails or what have you, or on email lists, but they're not necessarily guilty of something, right? Because you can communicate with somebody not knowing that they're a serial killer or they're a human trafficker. That's possible. But when you're prominently mentioned in emails to partake in certain trips and things of that nature, that's a different story. But I agree with you. It will be very interesting to watch the hearings that will result now in both criminal and civil cases, because I'd like to see some of these victims go after the cash of some of these people who are involved in victimizing them.
And you mentioned all the serious stuff, but I'm not being serious today.
Okay, we can lighten up.
We can face and turn into the Grinch over the holiday season. So I'm looking at the committee members. And as we know, James Comer, he's going to have the goods. Now, on the serious matter, the guy that's the last person anybody's going to want to hear questions from in this committee, so I'm looking at the members, is freshman member Brandon Gill. He has a way to uncover the nasty stuff. But we have some other people we love. Jim Jordan, part of the committee. Guess who else, though? We got MTG, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. You think they're going to be out for carve up the turkey? Yeah.
That's going to be that's.
Oh boy, this is going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
Byron.
Yeah, because they're all wallflowers that really, really try to stay with these low profiles.
How about Tim Burchett? He's a good one to cut them all up. And then I'm wondering what committee's going to hear this in the Senate. Because one thing I want to see is a committee that has John Kennedy in it, because that's going to bring some laughter. Woo! Man, is he going to cut them up?
Yeah, Kennedy, with those down-homesy sayings that he has and analogies that he makes, it's quite charming. But the guy is brilliant, by the way. Don't fall for the southern slang that he uses. The man's an intellectual giant.
You're speaking to John. Do you know his
John Kennedy? Yeah,
book that's just coming out. Did you realize he's a Rhodes Scholar?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't get fooled by that southern accent and those sayings, those folksy sayings. The man is quite intelligent.
And all I got to say is go to the influences, the where sources you go online, podcasts and the like, and he's making the rounds. And oh my, is he got some zingers these days? Somebody's got to make a book out of just his book.
Right. The accumulated sayings or expressions of Kennedy. Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely incredible.
Well, it's going to be a wild ride for a while. And hopefully, look, this finally runs its course. Again, the fact that they tried to tell us, and Schumer's up there lying to us about Trump. If Trump was indicted in any of this, it would have come out in 2016. Why would the Democrats have? They weaponized the Justice Department. You had the Russian hoax, the raid on Mar-a-Lago, the P tape stuff. All of the stuff they've done, made up, fabricated, weaponized against him. You think they would have sat on something if he was indicted in the Epstein files? You don't, and they would have thrown Bill Clinton under the bus to get it out. If he had to go down to get Trump, they would have done it. Final words were against the clock, Ken.
This is about the militant Marxists taking out the old Democrats.
I'll go along with that. Well said. All right. Thank you for the call, Mark. Always appreciate it. Good call. All right, folks, we have to take our third and final break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. We'll be back 2 minutes, 2 seconds, folks. All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. And you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And lines are open and available, so take it. You can also text us at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. All right, I want to move the conversation a little bit to the Saudi Arabia situation because we've got the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He announced that Saudi Arabia plans to increase its U.S. investment. The commitment was originally for the $600 billion to nearly $1 trillion. And according to his remarks at the White House alongside President Trump, the deal is said to target sectors including artificial intelligence, critical minerals, magnets is in there, technology, infrastructure, and defense. And the White House says some of the $600 billion in deals already outlined include major investments via Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the PIF, energy, tech infrastructure, and $142 billion arms package. And we're going to sell them F-35s. Meanwhile, skepticism remains. Reporting from Axios suggests that only around $282 billion of the announced investments are clearly documented so far, raising questions about how much of the trillion number will actually materialize. Well, it's not going to come in overnight, right? That's just not how this goes. Now, I was wondering, can we comprehend, you and I, can those of us, I mean, what is $1 trillion? This absolutely is going to bolster the American economy, create jobs. So I decided, well, how do we do that? There's so many zeros. I mean, even when the Mega Millions or something gets up to 900 million or $1.1 billion, for most of us, we can't conceive getting that kind of influx of cash, even though we're taking only 2/3 of that home, say. But if $1 was a minute, then $1 trillion would be 1.9 million years. This is not just big money. It's almost incomprehensible type of scale that we're dealing with. This is a lot of money, folks. And it's going to change a lot of things. Massive foreign capital inflows raise sovereignty questions, though, don't it? Should we let another country invest that amount of money into our country? How dependent does America become on Saudi money? Well, we've been dependent on it for 50 years. I go back to the Golden Rule reference I made earlier in the show. There's been this quiet understanding agreement for many decades that we will not only keep the Saudi family in power, but we won't let anyone take them out either, as long as this happens. And while foreign investment is legal and beneficial, such large stakes deserve some scrutiny to ensure U.S. interests aren't compromised. Investment tied to defense. $142 billion in arms. Now that symbolizes more than financial ties. They forge strategic military alignment at that stage, doesn't it? Entangling national security with economic deals can compromise long-term independence. But we're still the biggest stick on the block, if push comes to shove on that. The U.S. must enforce strong regulatory and transparency regimes on foreign investments. They have to do that. Government should guard against golden parachutes for foreign capital that may undermine domestic control of things. You got the free market versus the influence of risk on this, because foreign capital into AI, infrastructure, critical minerals can boost innovation and jobs, and that's good under free markets. It's real good. But when state-backed foreign funds like the Saudi PIF invest at this scale, there's a risk of political leverage, not just profit-seeking. And the gap between $1 trillion headline and the roughly $280 billion documented deals, of course that's based just on Axios, that's concerning. So citizens deserve clarity when we're talking about this kind of influence, i.e. money. What are the exact deal? of those terms. What is the real investment versus purchase of U.S. goods? And this echoes the old petrodollar system, right? U.S. security in the kingdom in exchange for economic alignment. It's been there for 50 years. Under Nixon, the U.S. leveraged the dollar's status globally. Now, massive Saudi inflows may reflect a modern version of that dynamic. Power in exchange for capital. Americans should ask, does this deal benefit them? Or is it geopolitical maneuver that risks future leverage over U.S. policy? If foreign state control vital infrastructures or technology sectors here that could threaten not just economic freedom, but also national autonomy. And if other countries see that massive capital buys influence, more nations may replicate this model, or at least try to. It sets a precedent where geopolitical allies essentially buy in to U.S. strategic sectors, making the U.S. a playground for foreign sovereign wealth. And again, I go back to that to comprehend this, because I don't know if we can actually comprehend that. So if a dollar was a minute, $1 trillion is 1.9 million years. Not big money, almost incomprehensible type of money. And who benefits with this kind of money? Now, the White House already confirmed $142 billion in that arm deal. Defense contractors here get stronger. U.S. national independence becomes more intertwined with the Saudi wealth. But that PIF from Saudi is aggressively buying into U.S. AI, including cloud infrastructure, computer hardware, or compute hardware, and software platforms. The U.S. wants domestic investment in AI to remain high, so China doesn't dominate. And that's why Meta and these other AI companies are building not just incredible AI complexes, but their own power plants to go with it. Our current power grid cannot support the addition of these complexes, these multi-billion-dollar complexes that are going to require massive amounts of power for computing. But foreign sovereign ownership does raise influence concerns. So good for innovation, risky if foreign governments own the backbone of American AI infrastructure. But we have to stay ahead of China. There's no question on this. And the Saudi investment does include minerals essential for, say, EV motors, military tech, semiconductors. These sectors are dominated by China right now. So Saudi capital helps diversify suppliers. It invests in U.S. mining, refining, advanced manufacturer sectors benefit greatly on this. So this reduces dependence on China, but increases dependence on other authoritarian states. And Saudi PIF is already a major global tech investor. The new pledge expands that into the robotics, clean tech, and nuclear, space technology, cloud companies. Believe it or not, Amazon Web is the dominant cloud company in computing is Amazon. That's most of these websites you deal with are using Amazon's web services. It also expands into the cloud companies, but logistics and